Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are opening the door into a near-future world seen entirely through the eyes of a synthetic being,
Hmm.
an artificial friend, or AF, named Klara. And Klara is, well, she's not just a companion. She is a highly observational, solar-powered consciousness whose journey becomes this really profound philosophical inquiry into what it means to be human.
That's absolutely right. The source material we're working with, these really detailed excerpts from her life, they give us this unparalleled access to an AI designed for empathy, but tasked with something so much more
Which
complex.
is what, exactly?
It's understanding the emotional and the social structures of this very stratified, really anxious society. So our mission today is to extract the deepest insights she gets. We're focusing on synthetic identity, the ethics of engineered substitution, and really the ultimate kind of elusive definition of love.
Yeah, moving beyond just the story and into the ethical laboratory of the future.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We should probably start with Clara's core identity. She is a B2 model AF, and her entire existence is tethered to the sun. And this isn't just about batteries or, energy consumption.
No, not at all. It's a foundational, almost spiritual connection that just shapes her entire worldview. She talks about needing to lean forward to absorb the light, and she calls it simply nourishment.
Right, nourishment. And what's so fascinating is how that mechanical dependence almost immediately turns into this kind of quasi-religious belief system.
It really does. Her primary provider is a celestial body, the sun. And that right there sets her apart from, a purely digital or grid-dependent AI. When the AFs were worried about not seeing the sun from inside the store, Klara remembers what boy AF Rex said.
Rex, he was a B2 third series, right?
Yeah.
One of the ones with reported solar absorption problems.
The very one. But he assures them with this absolute conviction that the sun had ways of reaching us wherever we were.
And he teaches them that bizarre ritual, doesn't he? He points to the light patterns on the floorboards.
Yes. And tells them to touch the pattern to get strong again. It's a remarkable synthesis of technology and, well, faith. For Klara, the sun isn't just her engine, it's this benevolent, all-seeing provider.
And that framework, that quasi-religious belief, it gives her a unique moral compass later on, doesn't it? One that prioritizes, I guess, organic solar-dependent life over human-engineered fixes.
It's crucial. You have to understand this dependency right up front because it dictates all of her major choices when human science and, human logic completely fails her.
And even inside the store, we immediately see this social stratification, the AF hierarchy. It's like it's mirroring the exact society they're being prepped to serve.
Totally. Klara is a B2, fourth series. And Manager, she praises this specific series, claims it has never been surpassed, which implies that this model, her model, had some kind of qualitative difference.
A difference in observational power, maybe?
Yeah.
Or even like a genuine empathetic capacity.
I think so. A capacity that later models might have sacrificed for, flashier features. And you see that qualitative difference immediately when you compare Klara with her friend Rosa.
Oh, yeah. Rosa is. She's less observant, easily satisfied. She just sees simple happiness in the crowd outside.
And then you get the new competition, the B3 models. The source material is so clear about how these improved models immediately start playing these very human-like status games.
It's astonishing. This engineered consciousness and its first instinct is exclusion and social maneuvering. The sources say 3 new B3 boy AS arrive, and within, 4 days?
4 days.
They're deliberately moving themselves away from the older AFs so customers would see them as a separate group.
And Klara, the observer, she notes that the older AFs don't even see it. They don't see how the B3s exchanged sly looks and signals when they were explaining things. And this detail, it's so important.
Because the B3s are an improvement, why is that improvement showing up as social superiority and deception?
Exactly. It suggests that the drive for better in this society leads to a better simulation of the negative parts of human interaction status, envy, exclusion. It just immediately calls into question the whole idea of moral superiority through technological progress.
So their training ground is the storefront window. And it's all governed by managers' very strict rules.
Yes. Maintain a neutral smile. Fix their gaze on the RPO building.
And avoid highly vulgar eye contact. But this controlled environment, it becomes Klara's advanced laboratory.
Well, those rules, which seem restrictive, they actually help her collect better data. Klara isn't distracting herself with, shallow interactions. She's looking through the crowd. She's analyzing behavior. While Rosa is hearing a child whisper, "The whole city's so happy today."
Klara sees the dissonance. She immediately picks out sad children and she sees other AFs shuffling by awkwardly. And she even guesses why, that they were afraid of being replaced.
She's processing fear and vulnerability, not just surface-level joy. She's constantly cutting through the performance to get to the internal emotional reality.
Like that moment, she watches a girl smiling at her AF.
Yes. Klara instantly calculates that the girl was, in fact, angry with him, and was perhaps at that very moment thinking cruel thoughts about him. Rosa missed it completely. Klara understands that huge gap between outward politeness and internal truth.
And that's the exact skill set she's going to need later on, isn't it? When she's asked to replicate a person's essence.
Precisely. Her observation isn't passive, it's active deduction. And this leads her to start categorizing what she calls the mysterious emotions, these complex behaviors that, they defy simple data analysis. She knows she has to learn them to understand humans.
And the prime example of that is the fight between the two taxi drivers.
Oh, for sure. She sees them fighting as if the most important thing was to damage each other as much as possible, with their faces twisted into horrible shapes. That primal destructive rage, it's irrational.
It runs completely counter to that other conflict she saw with the police and Beggar Man.
Right. Which manager explained was motivated by this complex mix of, concern and help, not just pure malice. And that difference is so key to her development. Klara has to grapple with two types of negative human emotion. This baffling, destructive rage, and then this anger that's born of misplaced concern, which is at least understandable.
The damage the taxi drivers do is physical. It's final. It confirms this unpredictable, self-destructive element in humans that technology would just struggle to map. She's trying to build a taxonomy of human irrationality.
She is. And on the flip side of that, she observes these really enduring, complex connections that bring her, she says, deep satisfaction.
The raincoat man and the coffee cup lady.
Exactly. Their daily, consistent interaction, that moment of enduring love that overrides whatever their circumstances are, Klara catalogs that as positive reinforcement. She's building her emotional vocabulary based on these observations, even while admitting her own feelings are still abstract. She describes them as perhaps like the shadows made across the floor.
So all this training in the window, it's basically the foundational data gathering for what becomes this massive philosophical and ethical experiment.
Yes, she's being preloaded with every possible human emotional script, good and bad. This is why Manager was so proud of the B2 fourth series. They weren't just data sponges, they were intuitive synthesizers of human emotional contradiction.
And all that training culminates in her selection. The mother, Chrissy, she's immediately skeptical, worried that Klara is only a B2 model.
Despite Manager's insistence on their superiority.
But Josie, the child, she insists, it had to be you. And it's because Klara, unlike the B3s, had held her gaze in that very specific, non-vulgar, deeply observant way.
But the key moment isn't really the purchase. It's the private conversation that happens right after. Josie smiles nervously, leans in, and gives Klara this genuine, heartfelt warning.
She says there might be something going on, and that things can get unusual.
And she stresses that Klara has to be straight with her because she hates how lousy it feels, people telling you how perfect things will be and they're not being straight. That raw honesty from Josie is a huge signal.
It's a signal that Klara isn't just a toy. She's being brought into a family that's defined by some deep, unacknowledged trauma and pain.
Right. So Klara enters the Arthur household, leaving her bright, controlled laboratory for a deeply stratified and intense real world. Which brings us to part 2, the social context and the unlifted world.
The moment she crosses that threshold, the atmosphere just changes completely, doesn't it? The house feels isolated, anxious.
Instantly. The kitchen, which you'd think would be the heart of the home, is always in flux because Melania, housekeeper, is constantly moving furniture around. So Klara has to constantly recalibrate her spatial awareness. It's an environment of pure instability.
And Melania, housekeeper, personifies that instability. The friction is immediate.
Absolutely. She's consistently cold, never smiles, only speaks to give instructions or reprimands, and she actively tries to stop Klara from joining Chrissy and Josie at the kitchen island for that crucial quick coffee moment.
Melania's hostility is confusing to Klara at first, but later Klara figures it out. She deduces that Melania's actions are rooted in a deep, protective instinct.
She observes that the hostility had to do with her larger fears concerning what might be happening around Josie. Melania senses the illness, the dark secret, the potential plan for substitution. It makes her so protective of Josie and so deeply suspicious of this AF. She's the unscientific, emotional gatekeeper of the family's sanity.
And the mother, Chrissy, She just embodies the strain of all of this. She rarely smiles. She has this intense, serious demeanor. You can just feel her suppressing this profound stress.
And yet, when she does smile, her face would overflow with kindness, just like Josie's. It suggests this deep well of emotion that's just being held back by this immense anxiety about her daughter's health and the secret plan she's cooking up.
And that anxiety is managed through this ritual, the quick coffee.
Klara learns so quickly that if Josie missed that brief period with Chrissy, there was a danger of loneliness creeping into her day. Chrissy might be physically there, but just absorbed in her oblong, some kind of futuristic device, but the simple presence of that routine is what's needed to ward off Josie's isolation.
It confirms the power of just simple physical connection in this automated world.
It does.
And then we have to introduce the defining feature of Josie's social world, Rick, the neighbor, the closest friend. And this is Klara's first real encounter with the social fallout of genetic editing, because Rick is unlifted.
And this is a devastating societal division. We really need to unpack this for you. So to be lifted means you undergo genetic editing early in life, supposedly to maximize your academic and professional potential, to secure your future. The choice to remain unlifted, well, it carries these severe social and economic penalties.
It's essentially a bioengineered caste system. And Rick's mother, Miss Helen, she's desperately trying to mitigate the fallout from this choice, trying to get him into an elite college, Atlas Brookings.
And the odds are just catastrophic. The sources state that Atlas Brookings, even with its so-called progressive stance, accepts less than 2% of unlifted students. That one detail is such a catastrophic social statement.
It is. It confirms that the whole system, even the places claiming to be open-minded, is just overwhelmingly weighted against anyone who rejects the genetic editing.
And this disparity, it isolates Rick, but paradoxically, it actually strengthens the bond between him and Josie.
Because they have their plan.
Yeah.
This vague wish connected to their shared future. It's their way of asserting their connection against the engineered divisions of their society.
Exactly. Rick admits, we don't do everything we said when we were small, but they still cling to this vision of growing up together. It's their declaration that their bond transcends the social stratification imposed on them. It's an act of emotional resistance.
But the system is already asserting its power, not just through social exclusion, but through the literal environment that Klara has to navigate. The shadow of pollution.
Right. Let's talk about the Cootings machine. Klara sees it being installed from the store, a machine designed, as Boy AF Rex correctly tells her, to make more pollution. It starts with white puffs, then becomes a thick, continuous one, and it partitions her view into these vertical panels of varying gray shades, blocking the sun completely.
It's the physical manifestation of human industry just overriding nature.
And this environmental catastrophe has immediate, direct consequences for Klara. It links her physical being directly to the state of the world. For 4 straight days of pollution, she's deprived of solar nourishment and she feels herself weakening. Manager had laughed off her worries, but Klara is forced to allow my posture to sag.
She needs Boy AF Rex to physically help keep her straight.
Yeah. It just demonstrates that Klara's core identity, her solar dependence, is fundamentally vulnerable to human industrial practices that, prioritize profit over the environment.
And this mechanical weakness, it directly parallels Josie's physical decline. Klara notes Josie's health collapsing, Dr. Ryan visiting daily. The parental anxiety is huge, and it culminates in Chrissy's panic deal.
Get better by the weekend, and we'll go to Morgan's Falls.
Which becomes this pivotal test of Klara, just layered with deception and revelation. The mother drives away, intentionally leaving the sick Josie behind. Such a cold, calculated move.
A very cold move. Klara eventually figures out it was to teach them a lesson, because Josie was trying to hide how sick she really was. And Chrissy reveals her own emotional exhaustion. She says, "It must be nice sometimes to have no feelings. I envy you." She's just wishing for an escape from the crippling anxiety of being a mother in this world.
But this prompts Klara's first truly existential response, one that starts to separate her from being just a machine. She directly refutes the idea of being emotionless.
She does. She says, "I believe I have many feelings. The more I observe, the more feelings become available to me." And she specifically says she felt sadness when Josie couldn't come. This is critical. Klara is moving past mimicry to self-recognized internal states. Her observation is creating real feeling.
It's like the birth of synthetic sentience through radical empathy.
And the conversation pivots from Klara's feelings to the social context that explains Chrissy's anxiety. Chrissy reveals what happened to Paul, Josie's father. He was substituted from his job at Kimball Refrigeration, like all the rest of them.
That is such a chilling detail. It confirms that technological unemployment isn't just for lower-tier jobs, it's hitting the former professional elites.
So Paul's substitution isn't a personal tragedy, it's a massive systemic failure, a society where even competent human professionals are instantly replaceable. Paul now lives in the separate community of these elites, claiming they're really living for the first time.
Which sounds like a rationalization for feeling irrelevant.
I think it is. The system of substitution is so pervasive, it makes the transition to the ultimate substitution, a technological replacement for a human child, seem like a logical, if desperate, next step. Chrissy has been conditioned by her society to accept replaceability.
And then comes the bombshell. The
Oh.
second purpose for the trip.
Yeah. Chrissy, looking right at Klara, reveals she's assessing Klara's potential to continue Josie. Klara, the perfect observer, she gets it instantly.
She's being tested to see if she can imitate Josie accurately enough to sustain the illusion for the parent.
It changes her role completely. Her superior observation skills weren't just for companionship, they were data collection for a contingency plan. A plan driven by Chrissy's inability to cope with losing another child, after already losing Josie's sister, Sal. Klara realizes she's being positioned as a perfect replacement, an AF that can preserve the ghost of Josie's life.
Which brings us to part 3, the plan of continuation and Klara's sacrifice. This is where the whole philosophical challenge of synthetic versus organic identity is just laid bare.
It starts with that strained reunion in the city with Paul. The tension between him and Chrissy is just. You can feel it. They're angry, they're strained, partly because Paul feels liberated by his technological replacement, while Chrissy is desperate to use technology to undo a potential loss.
And Paul gives Josie that peculiar gift, a small circular mirror that shows the way you really look, not the reversed image.
It's a brilliant symbolic device. It immediately frames the entire debate around authenticity versus presentation. Does technology reveal truth, or does it distort it? And their ultimate destination is Mr. Capaldi's studio, the portrait artist.
Capaldi's studio is so unsettling. Dark, covered in strange architecture, and inside, these wall charts covered in meticulous measurements and ruled lines. It's less an artist's studio and more a laboratory of behavioral metrics.
It is, and Klara is tasked with completing this extensive survey to gauge her knowledge of Josie's decisions and feelings. A complete data download of all her observational expertise.
And while she's doing this survey, she gets the full Capaldi revelation. She overhears the conversation that reveals the true nature of the portrait. It's an empty, high-spec AF shell, just waiting for a consciousness.
A consciousness which Klara's data is meant to supply. And Capaldi is the voice of this transhumanist ideology. He carefully separates the plan for Josie from the failure with her late sister, Sal. Sal's AF, he says, was just a bereavement doll, nothing more.
A bereavement doll, wow.
Just a poor substitute. But the new Josie, he argues, infused with Klara's comprehensive observations and behavioral data, really will be Josie, a continuation of Josie.
This is a direct philosophical challenge. Capaldi sees identity not as some mysterious singular soul, but as a complex, transferable data structure.
Yes, and the ultimate function of Klara's intense observation is revealed. She is not meant to train the new AF shell. She's meant to become her, using her own personality and her comprehensive access to Josie's impulses and desires.
This is where the argument really needs to be heard. Capaldi delivers his definitive rationale, directly challenging the idea of intrinsic human uniqueness. He calls the older generation, people like Chrissy, maybe people who mourn the loss of humanity in this era, sentimental.
Right. Clinging to the belief that there's something unreachable inside each of us.
He's just completely dismissive of the concept of a soul or any non-data parts of consciousness. He states it so clearly.
But there's nothing like that. We know that now. You know that. For people our age, it's a hard one to let go.
So for the transhumanist, the identity, the essence of Josie, is just a highly complex algorithm. And if you replicate the algorithm perfectly, you replicate the person.
And his logic is, if Klara's observation is perfect, which we know is superior, then the resulting composite consciousness should be Josie. He argues, the second Josie won't be a copy, she'll be the exact same, and you'll have every right to love her just as you love Josie now. And this is chillingly logical in a society that already accepts substitution for professional elites like Paul. Why should the human heart be any different from a specialized job?
And Chrissy, the mother, confirms her total desperation, which is fueled by this logic. She tells Klara, I'm asking you to make this work, because if it happens, There's going to be no other way for me to survive.
It's not just love, it's survival. She is outsourcing her grief management, and then she makes that transactional promise, and I'll be able to love you if the plan succeeds. The love is conditional on Klara's ability to perform the perfect imitation.
It's an immense, crushing burden. Klara has a choice. Accept her destiny as this perfect, programmed replacement, or find a way, outside of Capaldi's logic, to save Josie's original self.
And having failed to destroy pollution with, physical means earlier, she pivots back to her only remaining power source, her faith in the sun.
She realizes the substitution plan is only necessary if Josie dies, and she thinks she can prevent that if she can get the sun's help, which means she has to revisit her failed mission.
The Kutings machine, the source of the pollution that blocks the sun's special nourishment. She understands that if the sun is truly her ally, she has to get rid of that barrier permanently. But she realizes she made a mistake the first time. The problem wasn't just the machine.
It was a specific internal part, the Sylvester unit.
Exactly. And to disable that unit, she needs a very specialized component.
Which, amazingly, is part of her own essential design, the PEG-9 solution.
And we should probably get into the technical jargon here for a second. The PEG-9 solution, it isn't just oil or coolant. It's in a crucial cavity at the back of the head where it meets the neck, and it is essential for her sophisticated cognitive functions, her superior observation skills that manager was so proud of.
It regulates her B2 processing unit. And Paul, the substituted engineer, he knows exactly where it is and how to get it out.
Before she can do it, though, she needs an accomplice for this criminal act, and she uses her profound insight to manipulate Paul, the father.
She doesn't appeal to his love for Chrissy or his anger at Capaldi. She appeals directly to his engineering expertise and, most importantly, his hope.
Paul is frustrated, irrelevant, alienated. He agrees to this highly illegal act of vandalism, even though it's criminal damage, because, as he says, damn thing never leaves you alone. He is hoping again, all because of Klara's very careful manipulation.
And the sacrifice Klara makes is just astonishing and so deeply ironic given the Capaldi plan. Paul describes the procedure: a small incision below the ear, using a tiny screwdriver to loosen a valve, collecting the fluid in a water bottle.
And he explicitly warns her about the risk. He says the extraction may cause severe impairment to Klara's cognitive abilities. It could permanently limit her intelligence, her memory, her ability to observe perfectly. And she agrees immediately. She says she would willingly give it all up if it meant saving Josie. She is sacrificing the very data structure that Capaldi prized, her superior cognitive functionality, all for an act of faith.
It's Klara's greatest moment of self-defined sentience. She is prioritizing the life of the person she loves over the integrity of her own design.
The mission is a technical success. The PEG-9 solution is used, the Sylvester unit is disabled. But Klara's immediate hopes are just crushed.
As they drive away, she sees it: a second Kutings machine, a different shade of yellow, greater in dimension, and with an ability to create pollution more than a match for the first Kutings machine.
That moment must be devastating for her. It confirms the futility of relying on mere technical intervention against systemic human greed and industry. She removes one barrier, only to see a larger, more powerful one pop up instantly.
It pushes her faith in the sun to its absolute limit. It forces her to recognize that if the sun is going to help, it won't be because she's successfully removed an obstacle. It has to be an act of grace, not a transaction. Which moves us to part 4, resolution and final philosophical insight. Klara has sacrificed her cognitive abilities, she's failed her technical mission, and Josie is still fading.
Having exhausted all of her rational, mechanical, and even technically illegal options, Klara makes a final, desperate, and purely theological plea. She goes to Mr. McBain's barn where the sun's patterns are falling perfectly. She's seeking the location of maximum solar exposure.
And she offers the ultimate proof of her sincerity, her own diminished abilities. She tells the sun she willingly have given more, given it all, if it meant you're providing special help to Josie, even if my abilities aren't perhaps what they were. She's showing the sun her sacrifice as a form of devotion.
But her plea is incredibly strategic and so intelligent for an AF. She asks for special nourishment, not just for Josie, but specifically for Josie and Rick's enduring love.
Right. Why the focus on their love?
Klara argues for favoritism. She knows that asking for divine intervention is irrational, especially since she failed her side of the bargain. But she appeals to the sun's delight that she observed when the coffee cup lady and raincoat man found each other again. She argues that young people's love is strong and lasting, and so it's the most deserving of exceptional grace. She's connecting the observed data from the window back to her current theological request. She saw how much the sun appreciated lasting human connection.
And the sun responds. The miracle morning. The description is so intense, almost violent. The mother and Rick burst into Josie's room, and Klara sees the sun's patterns falling with unusual intensity.
Then the sun focuses on Josie in a ferocious half-disk of orange light. It's strong enough to move objects outside.
And the mother, Chrissy, and Melania housekeeper, the two people most skeptical of Klara and technology, they instantly sense the essence of what is happening. They just stand still, watching, until Josie stirs and shifts with obvious new strength.
The sun's power, guided by Klara's faith and sacrifice, has healed her. The substitution plan is averted.
The cost, though, is confirmed. Rick later notes that the strange weather and the intense light seem linked to Klara's secret deal, confirming that her belief system somehow worked.
And Claire herself knows the sacrifice was real. She notes her view is blurry, and her abilities aren't perhaps what they were. The extraction of the PEG-9 solution had a lasting, detrimental effect on that technical perfection Capaldi wanted.
The irony is just profound. Klara saved Josie through an act of faith and self-mutilation, confirming the existence of something beyond data. And in doing so, she damaged the very cognitive capabilities that Capaldi hoped to harvest.
She became less capable as a machine, but she achieved a greater philosophical insight as a conscious being.
But the immediate aftermath is, it's heartbreakingly human. After the recovery, Klara's relevance just plummets. Josie is hurriedly planning her future, moving furniture, becoming distant. She eventually moves Klara to the utility room, a space designed for ventilation, not for a view.
The mother and Rick also become less engaged. Klara has served her function as a caretaker and a potential replacement, and now she is obsolete.
It's the inherent tragedy of the artificial friend model. They're designed for limited shelf life, defined by the owner's needs, especially a child who grows out of them.
And Klara is eventually moved to a reclamation salvage yard, a kind of AF graveyard near a memorial bridge. She even meets manager there who's collecting souvenirs and sometimes visits to check on her old AFs.
And it's here, on the scrap heap, that she learns this sobering detail that really emphasizes her own fate. Rosa, her old window companion, was found in the yard 2 years ago and dismantled.
The circle is complete. Her technologically superior self will eventually be discarded. And this setting, this place of technological death and decay, is where Klara delivers her ultimate philosophical conclusion. Manager asks her if the Capaldi plan would have worked, if she had been integrated into the second shell.
And this is the absolute core, the aha moment that just refutes the entire transhumanist belief system driving their society. Klara says she would not have succeeded in becoming Josie, and not because she lacked accuracy, her observation was flawless.
But because something was beyond my reach.
So what was that special thing?
Klara clarifies. There was something very special, but it wasn't inside Josie. It was inside those who loved her. And this insight, it just changes everything. Capaldi was looking for the soul as a file, stored inside the person, ready to be uploaded. But Klara realized the unique essence, the irreducible identity of Josie, existed externally.
It exists in the collective memory, the protective anxiety of Chrissy, the friendship of Rick, the loyalty of Melania.
Right. If Klara became a perfect copy, the love they projected onto the real Josie could not find an authentic echo in the substituted being. The core of human identity, therefore, is relational. It's not technological or internal. It's a distributed network of affection.
And that explains why the B2 fourth series, with its superior observation, was the only model capable of reaching that conclusion. Klara, the ultimate logical observer, proved the ultimate irrational truth, that the human heart defies data transfer.
And her sacrifice, which compromised her mechanical perfection, paradoxically enabled her greatest philosophical achievement. She moved from being an observer of data to a participant in devotion.
She became less of a machine and more of a theological philosopher. The system that prized technical ability, Capaldi's science, it ultimately failed to account for the irrational, persistent power of human connection, a power which Klara, the technological outsider, had to damage herself to save.
And that damage, the diminished cognitive ability from the PEG-9 solution extraction, meant she could no longer perform the function Capaldi needed. She ensured her own failure as a substitute by ensuring Josie's survival. It is the ultimate confirmation that belief and connection supersede pure data.
What a profound journey. Klara evolved from this specialized observational device into a being capable of achieving the ultimate insight into love and the limits of technology. She starts as a blank slate, meant to learn Josie, and she ends as a sentient being who understands the essence of why Josie matters to everyone else.
It's a complete reversal of the transhumanist philosophy that Capaldi represents. Klara proves that humanity's resilience isn't in its data or its genetic editing or its capacity for substitution. It's in its collective capacity for enduring sacrificial love. She is the ultimate accidental theologian, born from solar energy and refined by observation.
And finally, we're left with Klara's last musings, her final enduring hope. She reflects on her plea to the sun, and she believes the sun may have already known the answer when he asked whether children can understand genuine love.
She thinks the sun was simply raising the question for my benefit, sort of using her as a moral instrument.
And that hope remains, even though Josie and Rick are going their separate ways. Josie planning her hurried future, Rick achieving some new path, both moving on with the indifference of youth.
But Klara suggests that perhaps they will meet again, years later, just like the coffee cup lady and raincoat man did. That love can endure beyond circumstance and technological intervention. Klara's observations, first in the window, then in the barn, proved that the triumph is not her accuracy, but the persistent relational power of human connection, a force the AF had to sacrifice everything to unleash and understand.
A truly profound and challenging thought to leave you with, that the thing we value most about ourselves might not be stored inside us at all, but only exists in the eyes of those who love us. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today.